Good morning. This is my video presentation for a class 1 using the horizontal layer and oblique layer. We start with the cavo surface angle. I don't place a bevel on it. I simply round the edges. This is what I'm doing right now. That's going to favor adaptation.
Okay, so after etching, the cavity will be dried. This is water. And then immediately after this light drying, it should not be over dried. We apply immediately the adhesive, and this is where XP bond is so versatile because it doesn't depend on an ideal humidity level for the dentin. Yeah?
Then after light drying, the adhesive is cured for 10 seconds. Here we see the application of SDR as a base. Remember that SDR has flowable characteristics, but it's strong as a composite, and it allows a increment thickness of 4 millimeters. It's one of the options you have. You could have been doing this with a small layer of flowable, and then with composite. I chose to use SDR here because it's a little more convenient. And then we have to light cure it, following instructions for use. And after that, we can, if we still have space, we can add composite or a little more SDR. SDR require 1.5 millimeters of clearance for the composite. And here I'm placing a little more composite. It could have been SDR. My goal here is to create a reference. So this layer should be more or less 1 millimeter below the marginal ridges. And that's going to act as a reference for the occlusal layers, for the occlusal increments. You can see I like to use the microbrush. It could be a round instrument. And it is important to make sure that we have space for the occlusal increments, that this increment is not higher than the future mesial-distal groove, so 1 millimeter below the marginal ridge. Here I'm light curing. Each horizontal increment will be light cured for 20 seconds, or according to the instructions, of course. You can also add a little more to undermine the enamel. This is a good place, a good time for doing so. Again, use round instruments. I don't think there's a place in composite dentistry for sharp, flat instruments. We want to use round shapes, from the burst shape to the condenser to the microbrush. Here I'm light curing the last horizontal increment, and I'm imagining with my mind's eye where I want these increments to be. There's a lot of references: the mesial-distal groove, the direction of the buccal groove. I don't have time to cover this, so if you want more information, let's set hands-on. Just invited myself, I guess. And so let's proceed now. After envision the future anatomy, occlusal anatomy, let's place the increment then. Here I'm placing the increment. I like to use the compule because it allows me to shape and place the right volume, more or less. First thing, make sure the composite is not overlapping on the buccal area. Remove any excess. And that also applies for the buccal groove, if you have any excess, for the mesial-distal groove, as I just did. So here there's a little excess. I want to make sure I have a well-defined buccal groove, so I remove the excess. Better now than later, I guess. And the next step is to adapt the margins. You know I like to use a microbrush. You can use a round instrument again, but you don't need adhesive in this case. So make sure it's well adapted, because then you don't need to finish this anymore. You just need to use a rubber point, but no major finishing. Here I'm defining the secondary grooves. I think they're very important to provide space for the mandibular excursions, for the movements of the antagonist, and for allowing you to place as much material as possible. So when we place more material, we have a stronger restoration. We follow the anatomy of the cusp. We follow the references. Now we light cure. Remember, just 3-4 seconds. This is a soft cure. For advanced buildup, so a buildup of the marginal ridge, I used a artistic technique, meaning that we split the areas we're building up. Here I'm focusing on the distal lingual area of the oblique ridge. It seems like a lot of time, but you're going to save a lot later on because most likely you don't have to adjust this. So this is advanced artistry, it is sculpting techniques. I wouldn't be able to build up the whole oblique ridge and the mesolingual ridge at the same time. So you know what I'm doing here. I'm placing a little stain so I can show the restoration to other dentists. This is not really for the patient. If you think you place too much, remove the excess. This is not about painting. This is about filling the grooves that you created. Little white stains, please keep it below the occlusal level. The occlusal level is more or less in the middle of the cusp, so these stains are not going to wear off, and they add to contrast. I also emphasize once more that you're not actually aiming to put too much staining, so if you think you put too much, just go ahead and remove the excess with a clean microbrush. That's going to add vitality to your restoration, so you can show it to other dentists. Now I like to seal the whole restoration. You can do this with a flowable composite, preferably of the same brand of the composite that you use. So if you use Aesthetics, for example, you can use Aesthetics Flow, or I use a stain and remove the excess. This is going to fill in all the defects, all the voids. You're going to have a much easier finishing time and much less likely to stain. Here, cure all the way, done in 20 seconds. And the finishing is really minimized. I'm just finishing the margin lightly. Sometimes I don't even think I need to do that, but just in case we're finishing it, it's a matter of seconds, and you don't have to put too much effort on this. We would then now adjust the occlusion and follow with the polishing with a polishing paste. This is Prismagloss, is a 2 grit finishing polishing paste with aluminum oxide based. It works very well, gives you this enamel-like polishing. And here's the final restoration. Rich anatomy, correct angles and space for the occlusion, a well-integrated restoration, well-defined, and with rich anatomy, secondary grooves, providing space for the mandibular excursions. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have been in Iceland. I really wish I can come back this time with a better camera so I can show you more things, advanced techniques, and have a good day. Bye-bye.